WVUA-FM, Tuscaloosa.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Fourth and Goal podcast. WVUA 90.7. WVUA 90.7's number one podcast for all things college football. A little bit different of an episode today. It's just me, Caden Johnson, alongside Braden Freedman, and we're going to be talking about the NFL Combine. So, things are kind of winding down here a little bit for spring break, so we're going to keep this episode a little bit shorter than our previous two episodes, but we still have some interesting stuff to talk about. A big week, the week prior with the NFL Combine. And Braden, how did you feel about the Combine? How much did you really keep up with it? How are you feeling about it?
I kept up with the Combine as much as I could in the highlights aspect of things. There were a lot of moments that I saw all over my social media page. Obviously, guys like Anthony Richardson, Darnell Washington really made a name for themselves and improved their draft stock when they weren't really projected to be that good beforehand. I think that there were some 40 times that we weren't expecting to be as good. There were some performers like Jalen Hyatt and Jordan Addison that didn't really show the way we were talking or we were expecting based on their previous draft stock. Obviously, they fell down a little bit high, maybe even a second round. What about you? You keep up?
I mean, yeah, I kind of the same as you a little bit. Obviously, I'm not a big, I'm not going to sit on NFL Network on TV, and just watch the Combine.
Of course not.
Yeah, but, with the help of social media, Twitter, Instagram, I'm basically able to see a video of every single player's 40 or their shuttle drills or their throwing, how they look catching, anything, essentially right after it happens, So, but I agree with what you said. I think that obviously, the Combine's great because that's how you get these guys that could be coming from small colleges. Some of the stories that come to mind are I can't remember his name, but there was the offensive lineman a year or two back. Do you remember? He played for an FCS school, but he made that weird milkshake, and that's how he gained a bunch of weight. Do you remember that? So he had
I do not remember
the
that.
way he gained weight. I'm gonna look it up right now, actually. But the way he gained weight was red Gatorade mixed with orange Gatorade mixed with a bunch of eggs and peanut butter. And he drank it every day. And
that sounds like quite the interesting combo. Was it just raw eggs in the Gatorade smoothie?
Yeah, I think it was something like that. I'm trying to look it up right now.
I've seen people do that before.
Yes. All right, it's Ben Barch's. Ben Barch's Blender is what he calls it. He was from St. John's, Mississippi.
Let's see the ingredient list.
Yeah, okay, so he had a smoothie that helped him gain over 60 pounds. Yeah, to become
over the course
NFL
of an off season.
Yeah, and he was able to go to the Combine and he kind of credited the reason why he had such a big growth and was able to gain so much weight as an offensive lineman to this shape. So he was 249 going into college. Now he's 309, as an NFL player, and this was 2 years ago.
He really put on the freshman 15.
Yeah, exactly. He took that to a whole different level. But okay, so here it is. 7 scrambled eggs, all right, cottage cheese, instant grits, peanut butter, and bananas.
Dude, that's got to be a 3,000 calorie shake.
Yeah, and then Gatorade on top of that.
Yeah.
That was kind of what made it a liquid.
That kind of throws you off. Is just I don't know. There's got to be some sort of flavored water, or just put milk in it, or something that would make sense instead of Gatorade.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. But Ben Barch is the guy. Let's see what. He was actually drafted by the Jags, so he was the first ever D3 player drafted by the Jags. He was drafted by Jacksonville in the 4th round in 2020. He was the first D3 player to be drafted since Ali Marpet was drafted by the Bucs in 2015. Still an insane story, though, but bringing us back to our original point, we kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there. Bringing us back to our original point, The combine is obviously a great way for some of these guys to really be seen, kind of get their stories out there, get obviously scouts interested. But you see guys like I said, like just now, Ben Barch, other D3 prospects. I think Kyle Duggar was maybe like a JUCO prospect that now plays for the Patriots, and he starts, and he's really good as well. And he had a big combine. And then even more so on the little bit of the bigger school side, DK Metcalf wasn't really a highly touted prospect, and then after the combine, that basically is what built up his entire draft stock. So the combine obviously isn't just for the NFL. It's a great way for these guys that have had their stories building up from high school and college being revealed. And I mean, I definitely think it's something worthy of us to cover in this show today. So, who was your biggest winner from this past week's combine?
I mean, it's hard to pick one. I mean, obviously everywhere. I mean, you could go three ways here in my mind. You could go Jahmyr Gibbs, our very own Jahmyr Gibbs. Might have just proved himself a little bit better as Bijan Robinson after his combine. I don't know. We'll see how that turns out. There's obviously Anthony Richardson and Darnell Washington. Anthony Richardson and Darnell Washington are two guys that we didn't really see in the the college regular season do a whole lot on the field because of Brock Bowers for Georgia and Anthony Richardson just not really performing that well. And it's hard to say if that was Billy Napier's fault in Florida or just with a bad team, or if Anthony Richardson just can't throw the ball. But he looked really good throwing the ball in the combine. And then I think besides that, everyone else who's expected to be good played pretty much how we were expecting them. Stroud, Levis, Will Anderson, all those. Jalen Carter, was he there? He was not there. He's not there.
He's just sticking to the pro day, kind of like Bryce.
Yeah, and that's another thing to talk about. Bryce did really good in his interviews, and even though he didn't throw, I mean, he's kind of proved himself. I think he's done enough. Taking a 10-2 Alabama team pretty much this year all by himself. I cannot talk today. Despite the two games that we dropped, were both under him being injured. Other than that, or playing through the injury. Other than that, I mean, he's been pretty much perfect as a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't put any of the losses that we had this season on Bryce Young. I think Bryce Young was absolutely stellar this season. Some of the best quarterback play I've seen in my time, like watching college football. And I think Bryce Young deserves, obviously, the top quarterback spot in the draft. But as for who I've, felt like had a great combine, obviously, in the physical aspect of things, Anthony Richardson had a great combine. I still think there's some concerns with his throwing ability and his decision making. Obviously, a lot of people say that he's a first check kind of guy. I think that will obviously be something that he can develop as he gets time in the league. And then, as you said, Braden, Jahmyr Gibbs, he kind of blew it out of the water, ran a 4.36 40. And I don't know if you saw it, but did you see his Instagram story where he was like across the line fully at like 4.23, and they still gave him a 4.36? Like,
dude, he was talking a lot about his 40 time.
He was kind of feeling it. He thought it was a lot faster than what they gave him as his official
maybe
listing.
The guy running the clock hit it like.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a scanner. Yeah, the scanner maybe.
If it was really a 4.23,
then that's insane.
That's the second fastest ever. That only behind John Ross, who ran a 4.22.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Jahmyr Gibbs run through entire teams all this year, but I mean, the difference between a 4.23 and a 4.34, right? 4.34.
4.36.
4.36 is pretty insane. Even though it doesn't sound like a lot, when that 40-yard initial burst, nobody's running that fast on the field. And once you get past 40 yards of people on the football field, I mean, that's broad daylight.
Exactly, yeah. I think if you're ever questioning Jahmyr Gibbs' speed, go watch second half highlights of Alabama's game against Arkansas this year.
Oh my
he just
God,
absolutely
he
exploded in the second half of that game. Kind of helped out Jalen Milroe. Milroe played solid too.
Yeah, I mean, he might have a quicker 40 time than Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, Milroe's great too. both fantastic athletes that played for Alabama. As for stock down, we saw a few other running backs not really have the best combine. Same for the receivers. Me and Braden talked a little bit about before the show. Jordan Addison, Jalen Hyatt are two guys that didn't really impress all that much at the combine. We're definitely expecting a little bit more from them. I thought Hyatt was going to be a little bit faster, especially in the 40 as he did.
Yeah, it's hard to tell because Hyatt just kind of seemed to be that deep ball threat for Tennessee the whole year, and it's hard to tell whether in just that game against Alabama, where if our defense was just in another state of mind that whole game defending him, or if it was just maybe his route running is a lot better, that's something you don't really get to see in the combine. But, I mean, just his overall speed wasn't as good as we thought it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Watching the tape a little bit, too, from his fastest 40, he also didn't really get the best start, which, obviously that isn't
the 10-yard split is probably the most important part.
Exactly.
Once you get in the 10-yard.
That's true, too. But obviously lining up on the line of scrimmage, you have to be able to get good starts off that. You have to be explosive off the line. Someone that's obviously probably one of the best that I've ever seen at that is Devontae Smith. So as for Hyatt and Addison, what do you think their combine results do to their stock in terms of compared to other receivers like JSN and Quentin Johnston? How would you rank those four? Let's go ahead and do that right now. So you have Johnston, JSN.
I kind of always thought that Johnston and JSN were better. I mean, I thought Jordan Addison was a lot better than he was in the combine, but I don't know. To me, it's so hard to judge a player just based off of straight physical ability. There's so much more that goes on the football field than just the metrics and the pure strength, and the combine has become kind of a major test with technology and all this. See it through all sports, baseball with StatCast, all this stuff. It's all getting, thrown out there. It's important, but I don't know how much it's going to change things. I still think Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnston are kind of on the same level. I do think JSN is the most talented receiver out of those four. He just kind of didn't get the chance to show it because of the injury and Marvin Harrison being as good as he was this year.
Yeah, okay, so I've been high on JSN as of late just because the more and more I look into him, more and more film I study from JSN, he's like, he just has it. I don't know. He feels like a true NFL wide receiver one to me more than the other guys, I feel like. So I would say
I can see Quentin Johnston though.
JSN is one, but that gets me to my next point. I really like Quentin Johnston, and obviously the biggest concern from Johnston coming out of college is that he had some issues with drops and he had some issues with high pointing the ball. Like when he would go up, to catch a deep ball, he would kind of let the ball fall into his chest still instead of catching the ball at its highest point. And he addressed that though in the combine. In the combine during the deep ball drills, he was doing just that. He was high pointing the ball. Which is obviously something really good for scouts to see because obviously Johnston is an absolute beast. He's like, 6'2"? Yeah. And fast.
Got the strength too, the metrics when it comes to athleticism. I don't know. I feel like that JSN and Johnston are very different receivers when it comes to it. I think that Johnston's more going to be a deep ball threat, even if they work on him. Or once he works on his high pointing, I see it being more of a deep threat. Just that's kind of how he was for TCU. I could see him. I don't know where I could see him going.
Quentin Johnston.
Who really needs a deep threat guy?
So according to some mock drafts, Johnston is going like in the early 20s range to the Ravens. Obviously,
the Ravens. If they keep
need
Lamar,
a wide receiver like every year, it feels like. And they traded Hollywood, obviously, last season.
Yeah. If they keep Lamar, they need... Yeah, I could see him going to the Ravens.
I feel like the wide receiver group as a whole this year is a little bit underwhelming.
Especially after the last 3 years, really, with, Devontae Smith, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, all these guys that, were huge names. Mechie, Jalen Waddle. The list just goes on this year.
Yeah.
There's not a clear, this is your guy.
Yep. And it's so wide open as far as the draft goes because obviously there's the 4 we listed, and then there's Zay Flowers too.
Yeah, Zay Flowers had a great combine.
Flowers had an awesome combine, and a lot of mocks have Flowers going as the number 1 receiver. So that's what I'm saying. Some mock drafts you'll see JSN. As I said, I think he's the best one in the drafts. A lot of mock drafts don't even have him first round, but then others will have him top 15, top 10, top 10. So it is completely up to the team's preference, team needs, who they feel like taking a chance on this year. I don't think there's as many players that will come out of this draft, wide receiver-wise that is, that will be like franchise cornerstone players. Like, we're not going to get the next Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase out of this draft, I don't think. But these are guys that will, for sure, I could see a couple of these guys being wide receiver ones at a point in their career.
Solid wide receiver ones.
Yeah. Exactly.
100%.
I don't think any of these guys will be like top 5 receivers, though.
It's hard to tell this early when they're coming out of college. I don't ever want to be, because I don't want something to backfire in 3 years.
I'm going to get a freezing cold take when JSN has a 2,000 receiving yard season.
Yeah, no, someone's going to go back to my college podcast when I'm working it, and they're like, what are you talking about?
We're going to get posted on the Twitter, like, freezing cold takes.
Oh, yeah,
We're in here talking about Jalen Hyatt is, like, not that... Yeah, Jalen Hyatt won't have that successful of a career, and he just becomes a Hall of Famer or something. Yeah.
Freaking Jerry Rice.
Yeah. So... with our luck, that would definitely happen. So, but as I said, though, there's those 5 guys that we talked about. All 5 of them are very solid. They were great in college, especially. And then you have to feel good for guys like Zay Flowers, who stayed in Boston College. This is a guy that did not transfer, stayed in Boston College. He easily could have went to probably any school in the country last year, and he decided to come back, run it back another year at Boston College, probably their best wide receiver in school history. And it's good to see guys like that stick around at maybe, not the most competitive school, but he'll go into the NFL, and if he's successful in the NFL, hopefully he will be. He's representing that school.
He could be the franchise guy in the draft just because of the trade of not being like, I'm just going to leave my last year.
Exactly. That's true.
He might just be a wide receiver 1. Obviously he probably will start as wide receiver 2, but he could be a solid wide receiver 1 that stays with the team for 10 plus years.
Yeah.
There's no predicting whether this guy's going to be, or any of these guys are going to be insane in the NFL or not. It's all.
Mm-hmm. And lots of mocks have him going to the Packers too. So obviously, I think that's a great fit. He's a physical wide receiver. Packers need speed.
They do need speed, and I don't know what they're gonna be doing about quarterbacks, but it just seems like every year that Aaron Rodgers says he's gonna leave, and then they re-sign him.
Yeah, and I was about to say, as for Zay Flowers, if Rodgers does come back, look out for Zay Flowers to seriously be in contention for offensive rookie of the year. Any rookie receiver that's he's gonna get targets too if Rodgers is there. You know that.
Yeah, and then you got that, and then you got the 2 running backs, Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs. I think that both have good chances if they start of being offensive rookies of the year.
Yeah, offensive rookie of the year is definitely wide open. You got obviously,
and then you got
Bryce,
the quarterbacks,
Bryce, CJ, AR, Will Levis. And then on the...
I can't see Anthony Richardson starting at all this year.
I do agree with that. I do definitely think that Richardson is going to be like a...
He's got to be a Jordan Love, sit him for 2 years, or at least 1 year. Let him develop under an NFL defense. And then he's just not NFL ready when it comes to his, like you said, his decision-making and his route reads.
Yeah, and obviously that's something that can develop. That's not like a.
It's not like it's a, athleticism issue or things that he can't control, like hand size, which is we've seen a lot of issues with that. Or with Kenny Pickett last year, that was a major concern. Anthony Richardson is like the perfect build for a quarterback. It's just he needs to develop a little bit.
Yeah, he has the physical tools, like the traits.
Just 6'4", 240-pound quarterback that runs a 4.40.
So, all right. So, make your prediction right now and stick with it. What team will end up with the number one pick? Obviously, we know it's the Bears right now, but what team will end up with the number one pick, like via trade, or maybe the Bears keep it? Up to you. And what player will they be drafting? Because I feel like this draft is as wide open as ever as far as who's going to go number one.
Yeah, to me, I know a lot of people have it being the Texans taking Bryce number one. It doesn't make sense to me. If you're the Texans, I feel like you kind of need to build your roster up a little bit more. So then when you drop in a quarterback, say next year, but I mean maybe this is your chance to get your guy.
Okay, so I definitely think they should take a QB this year, but also they're the 2. So if the Bears have the 1, the only reason they would need to trade for the Bears 1 is if the Bears were getting calls, like serious calls from other teams like the Colts.
Yeah,
and they were worried about the Colts taking their guy.
The one team that I see being a threat to Houston is the Colts, and the Colts are legitimately a quarterback away from being a good team.
That's kind of how the Raiders are too, though.
Yeah, the Raiders are like that too. I don't know.
So the Raiders have the 7th pick, and the Colts have the 4th.
I don't know if the Bears would be willing to trade for the 7th pick, though. I don't know if Will Anderson or Jalen Carter will still be available by then. They should be, yeah, because the Cardinals will probably take one of the 2.
Yeah. So can we agree, though, that the Bears are going to take Anderson or Carter?
They have to. If they don't, that'd be one of the worst GM front office moves. I mean, they need
that would be like the biggest fumble ever. I mean, really.
Yeah, I mean, you
got to get one of those two if you're the Bears. So, but it's just a matter of, and whoever they choose to get, they will get them either at 1 or if they trade with the Texans at 2. And honestly,
they'll get them with the Colts.
They would be able to get one of the 2 at 4 if they traded with the Colts.
That's why I could see the Colts getting it. I think it's going to go to the Colts. I think the Colts are, as much as I want to see Bryce and Mechie together, I'm going to say the Colts trade for the first pick.
Okay. I'm going to take it a step farther than that. And I do agree with you. I could definitely see Colts taking the first pick. I think that they have a front office that is willing to take that sort of risk, that level of a risk. And I like the Colts getting the first pick. Now, who do you think they take at that first pick?
I mean...
you think Bryce?
Yeah, I mean, they've been talking about it, how much they like Bryce. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, they've been very public that they want him. It's just going to be whether or not the Bears are willing to trade for 4. I mean, they know they're still going to get their guy, but maybe it's the difference. The Cardinals have the 3rd pick? Or they have
Cardinals have 3rd.
It's whether or not they're going to be, if they're so set on either Jalen Carter or Will Anderson, one of the 2, that they're not willing to give it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they're fine with either one of the 2, then it would be. But if they're so set on Will or so set on Carter, then it's just that. You don't know.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. Like, I mean, really, and I almost want to say that the Colts will trade up and get Anthony Richardson. Though I just feel like there's been, you know how every year it just feels like there's so much hype that just the hype gets to some front offices and it builds up and then they end up going higher than they probably should.
I would quit watching football if Anthony Richardson was the first overall pick.
I'm telling you, dude. Like it could happen. I'm not saying it's going to happen. And if I was a betting man, which if I was betting on this, I would still probably go Bryce.
I still think Stroud goes ahead of Richardson.
Really? You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
He definitely passed Levis, but I mean, I just see Richardson going to the Raiders and developing a year or 2 and then starting.
But to be honest, okay, but in that scenario, do you think Jarrett Stidham starts next year for the Raiders?
No, I could see them.
You think they bring in
I think
Garoppolo, maybe?
Yeah, Garoppolo, because he's worked with what's his name? That was on the Patriots. Somebody that worked.
Yeah.
You know who I'm talking about.
Josh McDaniels.
Yeah, Josh McDaniels. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I could see them bringing in Garoppolo, maybe Aaron Rodgers. maybe.
I think Rodgers. Well, okay, we're not going to get too much into NFL talk, whatever.
Yeah, this is a college show. We're trying to keep it as college as we
We're
can.
keeping it as college as possible without touching into the NFL free agency drama. But yeah, I do agree with what you're saying, though. I think the smart thing to do for Anthony Richardson would be to let him sit for a year, which in the Raiders situation, I honestly think maybe starting Jarrett Stidham as your QB next year isn't the worst decision.
Because then if he does really bad, you can just put Anthony Richardson halfway through the year.
And obviously, how terrible would it be for the Raiders to be bad again next year and get another top 5 pick? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then when Anthony Richardson has a full year to develop, and then they have Devontae's still on the contract, Devontae Adams, Jacobs, Waller, Renfro.
Offense is basically already set.
Yeah, the offense is there. Yeah. If they get a defensive player next year and they're not good this year, if they just tank for another year.
The secondary is a little rough, so they could maybe get one of the really good corners or safeties. Is anybody in the secondary next year if they had a high pick?
Yeah, I mean, if they have a top 10 pick, they'll be able to get a good corner.
Exactly, because you rarely see the corners like that going high. I feel like Sauce was one of the only ones I can think of to really go like top 5 as a corner.
I couldn't see them taking
Okudah was another one that went high as a corner.
Surtain went early. He went 10th though.
The Sauce went 4th and Okudah went 3.
Yeah.
I remember C.J. Henderson from Florida a few years back. He went top 10 to the Jags, and he's now in the Panthers. But cornerbacks don't normally get like the top 5 hype every year. Like they're not like edge rushers or quarterbacks. Basically, is where that who that goes to. But yeah, I do think that's a smart decision to make. But I wouldn't be surprised if Richardson is still starting week 1 next year for a team and they're making the wrong decision. I'm not saying it's smart for that to happen, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Colts got Anthony Richardson and he was starter week 1 next year, because the Colts really don't have a quarterback.
If the Colts took him, then it would make sense for them to start him.
It'd be him or Sam Ehlinger.
Yeah, and obviously you got to get Anthony Richardson in that case, but I mean, C.J. Stroud he's proven that he's more NFL ready at the moment when it comes to actual field play. Mm-hmm. So it all depends. If the Colts are willing to be bad for another year or two.
I feel like Stroud and AR are almost like complete opposites in their like pros and cons. Like I feel like Stroud, there's been some questions about his athleticism and his footwork in the pocket and escaping the pocket a little bit. But obviously he is absolutely money. Throwing the ball to any point on the field, throwing in it, he can read coverage is really good. And as we've talked about before, AR is kind of like the opposite of that.
He can't really read defenses that well. He takes off in the pocket.
But also, that brings me to a good question. Like, what would you rather have? Would you rather have a QB that like?
But then you can run the RPO with Taylor.
Are you talking about like in the viewpoint
like
of the Raiders? The Colts. Sorry.
Yeah, with Jonathan Colts. Taylor, you can run the RPO, and then that could be scary.
Yeah, because you have Pittman.
Like run like a West Coast offense.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy to think about. But okay, so if you're the Colts though, would you take that quarterback that can read the field, throw the ball, pinpoint accuracy to any point in the field, but lack the physical traits, or would you rather take like more of the project guy that has the physical traits, but maybe needs some time to develop on progressions and reading defenses?
I feel like the Colts usually pick the safer option. I feel like the Colts
they do. Yeah,
Colts rarely make bad moves in the GM
it's like
office.
them signing Matt Ryan. That's a safe bet.
Yeah, I feel like the Colts are a team that's going to go with the safest option pretty much always.
Phillip Rivers, another quarterback.
It's like that they're going to do fine. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if they took a risk, they took a gamble, they put it on red, maybe it would benefit them, but you have the safer option with Stroud. So I don't know. That's up to It's up to the men in suits in Indianapolis.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's really, like I've said, this is about, I mean, as far as I can remember, this is probably the most wide open draft that I can think of in recent memory. Like, there are so many different combinations of even just the top 3 picks in the draft this year and, like, the order that it'll be.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. And there's so much trade potential this year, too.
Yeah, and it could even be some, like, random trade. I mean, people could be trading for high up in the draft.
Yeah. Like, we could sit here and have this whole conversation, and then Will Levis's stock randomly shoots sky high 2 weeks before the draft, and Levis goes top 3, you know? Like, I mean, really, like, it could happen.
The way that draft stock works makes no sense to me.
Did you see the stuff with Anthony Richardson's odds? Like, how much his odds have went up?
Yeah,
for the first pick. That is, for being the first pick. It's crazy.
Oh my god, dude! I would stop watching football.
That's what I'm saying. I've seen multiple mock drafts just today as we've been doing this podcast, and I've been looking over mock drafts. I've seen mock drafts that have exactly what I said, like Colts trade up, get AR at 1. That's. I mean, that is like a real thing. Like, that's a real thing that could happen. That's a real possibility.
That's just you can't. I can't
Braden
even.
is just stumped by.
I can't. No, I've been hearing it, but I've been hoping that people are just saying that to put his name out there. Because I feel like there's always one guy in the combine every single year that kind of just shows out. I feel like he's that guy, but he maybe. I don't know. If he gets taken in front of Bryce or Stroud, I feel like but maybe not. Okay. It all depends on what you want. I don't know.
So
my mind's in a pickle.
Chris Trapasso of CBS Sports Network, in his official mock draft as of today, the day that we're recording this podcast, 3/9/23, he has the Colts trading with Chicago for the first pick and drafting Anthony Richardson. He has the Texans drafting Bryce Young at 2. He has the Panthers trading up with Arizona for the 3rd pick to draft C.J. Stroud. That's 3 straight QBs in the top 3.
That's not even a bad take.
And then the 6th pick, Lions drafting Will Levis, which I think is crazy but that's crazy considering Jared Goff. I don't think Levis is going to be better than Jared Goff. I don't even know if Levis' ceiling is higher than Jared Goff.
I feel like Levis is a lot more athletic than Jared Goff when it comes down to things. And I mean, I've watched Jared Goff play in person many times for Cal, and he's good at a lot of things, and he's not very athletic.
Yeah,
he is not an athletic quarterback. That is not his strength. I mean, he's taken a team to a Super Bowl. He led the Lions to a decent year, but I don't think he's a franchise face of the that type of guy.
But also, taking Will Levis right here, when they really as for the Lions, they don't have too many team needs. Maybe like interior D-line, and they could maybe get their O-line or receiving core a little bit better. But as for them, it wouldn't be that bad in the sense of maybe draft Will and let him sit for a year.
Let him sit for a year or two. Send Jared Goff to, I don't know, some team that.
But also then you would want to trade Goff before his value just completely depreciated.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I still think that Goff has a few more good years left in him.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
I don't think he's the quarterback for a playoff team at this point. He's getting a little bit.
I don't know. I think he could be.
Like, I don't see him leading, but I mean, people say the same thing. He's in the same category that Jimmy Garoppolo's in, where people kind of just overlook him. And he's a good quarterback, and Jimmy Garoppolo's a good quarterback, but they're just, like, good enough to win 10 games and make it to the second round of the playoffs. But most Detroit fan base, if they made it to the playoffs, the city would burn down. But, I mean...
Detroit wins that division, the NFC North.
Yeah.
Insane.
I mean, that would be
upside down if that happens.
Yeah, I mean, that would be crazy. I don't know. I could see them taking Levis. I've seen mock drafts about Levis going to Detroit. I don't know, but the way that AR going to the Colts when it's 3 quarterbacks in a row and the Cardinals possibly losing their D-line pick.
Yeah, that is tough, but then again. Another thing, talking about Will Levis a little bit more here, is if you're listening to this right now, go look up a picture of Will Levis at the Combine. That dude looks like an outside linebacker.
Oh, yeah, no,
he's built like a brick
athlete.
house.
Yeah.
Like if it wasn't for him having the letters QB on their jersey when they're working out at the Combine, you would think that this dude is a tight end. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Like, he is built way better than I thought he was, too.
Yeah,
like,
and
I knew he was big, but I didn't think that he was going to.
And that's
I don't know.
kind of where I kind of see
crazy.
him being better than Jared Goff, just because in the way
athletic,
Jared Goff came into the NFL right before the state of the athletic QB became a huge thing. It was still like the Tom Bradys, the Matt Staffords, the Tony Romos. Those were the guys that were dominating as quarterbacks, just guys that could escape the pocket when they needed to, but that was it. There was no run after play. Really, the only guy that could do that was Russell Wilson and Michael Vick before that. I mean, a few guys maybe here and there. But now it's, half the NFL, all the quarterbacks are built like tight ends and receivers. And
and can run, too.
And can run, and they're fast. And it's what teams want now. Is they want a fast, mobile, but also good at throwing quarterback, and that's what people are developing in college and high school. So
yeah. Well, all right. I said we were going to keep it short today. We've talked about the offense here for a while. We're going to talk about the defense for just a little bit here. Show some love to that side of the ball. Some of the biggest winners of the Combine defensively, we got Will Anderson Jr. out of Alabama, Christian Gonzalez, a corner from Oregon, who's really built up a name for himself. Obviously, Jalen Carter not in the Combine, but he will be participating in the Pro Day. A lot of people are back and forth on his draft stock. You got Tyree Wilson, an edge out of Texas Tech, who's really high in most draft boards. Lucas Van Ness is a guy that really built up a name for himself. He's an edge rusher out of Iowa. They had a very good defense this year despite not having a great team. And then another Bama boy, Brian Branch, has really went from kind of being like an early second, late first to being like maybe mid-first, early first at best. So great stuff on the defensive side of the ball from those guys. Who did you like defensively from the Combine?
Obviously I'm going to give it to the boys in Crimson. Will and Branch. Will had a 1.61 10-yard split, I'm pretty sure. As a D lineman, that is wide receiver speed off the line, and none of those O linemen are keeping up with that much pace. None of those O linemen are as athletic as Will Anderson is. Maybe here and there you'll find the Trent Williams or I don't even know. I don't think there's anyone. He's kind of unguardable in the sense of speed. Like this year, we saw him get double teamed a lot. He's a guy that you can't keep one man on. And then Branch, he didn't really have the best game against us for Tennessee, which kind of got him a lot of hate from fans here. But he was him and Dallas Turner, Jordan Battle, were the kind of leaders of that secondary, and both did a really good job despite what some people might say. Brian Branch was really good in his Combine. He just showed his athleticism, and you can see the video of him compared to the other corners in the just reading the throw drill where they're twisting their hips, and he's ridiculously faster at turning around to the ball than anyone else in that clip. Yeah,
and then showing some love to the big guys in the trenches. The DT Kalijah Cansey out of Pittsburgh ran a 4.67 40, which is
that's
absolutely
insane.
Nuts. He's 6'1", 281, so he's slightly undersized to be a DT. But 281 pounds running a 4.67 is
that's a train coming at you.
Yeah. Absolutely nuts. I want to say there was another guy from maybe Northwestern that had a really good.
I think he was O-lineman.
O-line that had a really good 40.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy to see how athletic these guys are getting from every position. We talk about quarterbacks being more athletic.
Just
DTs.
There's so much more research on just training and dieting and all this stuff that is making players just each year ridiculously more athletic. And, I mean, we're going to keep seeing that from years to come as the entire NFL in about 20 years is all going to be on some robotic AI training mechanisms and stuff that we can't even think of.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point.
All right, and so I think we may have touched on this before in the show, in the history of the show. My favorite team, of course, is the Dallas Cowboys. My co-host today, Braden's favorite team is the San Francisco 49ers, right? So Cowboys have like the 26th pick. Niners have what, late second?
I have no idea.
I mean, it's not a first rounder.
I know
I think it's late second.
It's pretty late second.
Yeah. So real quick, we're going to do our absolute dream pick. All right, so realistically, obviously, but realistically, my dream pick for the Cowboys at 26 is Cam Smith out of South Carolina. He's a corner. He's absolutely, he's just a beast all around. He's had really great games for South Carolina. South Carolina has a history of producing good secondary players such as Stephon Gilmore, who won Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL over the last few years. But yes, Cam Smith is fantastic. He has great on-the-ball skills. Obviously, I think the Cowboys need another corner to pair alongside Diggs. Deron Bland was very good for us this year, but Cam Smith would add depth to that corner's position, and he would be great. Another guy, I don't think he'll fall to us, but Joey Porter Jr. out of Penn State. He's like 6'2", and he's fast. 6'2", fast corners, that's kind of good. That's what you like to see. So, as for the Niners, what's a dream realistic pick for your Niners?
So we don't have a pick until we have pick number 100 is our first pick in the draft.
No way.
So I'm going to have to scroll down the list here.
Yeah.
Oh, man, dude. I don't even know who you'd want to go. Top 100 players in the combine.
What in the, what? Okay, so what would be like San Francisco's
So New Orleans
need?
had our first round. I mean, realistically, I don't even know. It's like that team was a quarterback. Like, it came down to, just the running out of quarterbacks. Yeah. We put a guy in there that couldn't throw the ball.
Okay, so you're thinking quarterback?
No, I'm not thinking quarterback. Maybe you need a third string.
I don't. I think you can still draft team need at that range, though. Maybe
I pick 100. Who do you?
Maybe
I don't know.
Wide receiver 3.
You have
Jennings, and you do have Jennings.
I think Jennings is a good wide receiver 3.
Secondary, maybe another corner. They could use.
You got Ward.
Because I know of Ward.
Both right Wards. And then you got the guy that looks like Troy Palmer.
Hufanga.
Hufanga.
But he's really like a safety.
That's right. He is safety. I don't know.
It'd have to be
both
corner.
Who would be a corner that'd be taken that late? I couldn't tell you who would be our pick that late in the draft.
Call me crazy, but just from us, Eli Ricks has potential to be that late, maybe. If you're lucky enough, Eli Ricks could fall that far.
Yeah.
DJ Turner out of Michigan's another guy that was very good in college and could be taken around that area. CBS has DJ Turner the 106th ranked overall prospect. So, that would be good for the Niners.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to see what the internet has projected.
I haven't seen mock drafts of that far in. That's what, early 4th?
I can't even
right?
find it. I can't even find our pick.
I don't go that far.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think. I'll guess dream pick would be another corner, but there's not too many holes in that team other than who's going to be slinging the ball.
There's a few more holes in my team, but anyways, wrapping up this episode here.
Jerry Jones.
Yeah. Thanks for reminding me. That's exactly what I needed to get through the rest of the day. Kind of wrapping up this episode, I said that we'll do random ranks at the end of every episode. So Braden and I are going to do one right here. Kind of put you on the spot, but top 3 overall prospects. This can any position, defense, offense, whatever. Top 3 overall prospects go. Starting with 3.
3. I'm gonna give it to Jalen Carter. 2, Will Anderson. 1, Bryce Young.
Okay, I like 3, Jalen Carter. 2, Bryce Young. 1, Will Anderson. That's how I have it.
Okay.
So that's how it is for us. A little bit of NFL talk out of this college football episode from us, but it's the off season. There's not a whole bunch
combine
going on,
week.
and it's combine week. Everybody's in the spirit. We're trying to see our favorite players from college translate to become potentially some of our favorite NFL players. And obviously, the great thing about the NFL is players that I, wasn't too big of a fan of in college, I've become a big fan of in the NFL.
Yeah.
So,
maybe Jalen Hyatt becomes your new favorite receiver.
Who knows?
My least favorite player of all time.
That's the fun of it. So you never know what it's going to be. I think Combine's great. Obviously, like I said, it kind of meshes, NFL fans, colleges fans together. And I don't know, it's pretty great. But as for us, maybe cut us some slack today. Wasn't the most organized episode, but it was our first time kind of hitting up a 2-man episode. Our good buddy Nick will be back for the next episode. He was off covering the SEC tournament for basketball in Nashville this week, so we'll be happy to have him back next episode. I guess this is it. So as from me, I'm Caden Johnson.
I'm Braden Freedman.
And this is the 4th and Goal podcast. Signing off.